All right, we are back here to answer some of the really common questions about being a child, an adult daughter of an emotionally abusive or narcissistic, emotionally immature mother. We are going to be talking about the concept of gray rocking today, which is a really, really common term. Some people have heard of, some people have not, but it's a skill. And so today is going to be a little bit less of a specific question and more about a skill or a strategy. So I'm Christina. This is Maureen here with me today. We're marriage and family therapists, and we're just going to chat. So let me kick it to you first, Maureen. What is gray rocking?
Yeah, gray rocking is this concept that's been floating around for a while. That is a strategy or a tool to use when you're dealing with someone with narcissistic tendencies or tends to be emotionally immature. And the idea comes from that narcissists or people that are emotionally mature need a feed or a supply of attention or feedback or compliments or even, anger and arguments kind of feed that supply that there's this need for engagement. And so gray rock is the idea of being as interesting as a gray rock. So not really engaging with that feed, that supply, those baits into whether it's either arguments or compliments or engagement in general. That you're just as interesting as a gray rock. So you might respond or engage, but it's neutral and filtered and contained, and just like a gray rock, just kind of
Just like a
boring.
gray rock, just kind
And
of
the hope
boring.
is that, yeah, that person will kind of get bored or disengage or find somewhere else to get that supply need met since it's not coming from you any longer.
Yeah, I think the reason this skill is a really important or can be a really useful skill to have from my perspective is that oftentimes adult daughters can find themselves walking into a space with their mom and thinking to themselves like, oh, I don't want to talk about my job search or I don't want to talk about my new relationship or whatever it might be. But then you kind of get sucked in. You find yourself talking about things that you don't even realize. It kind of just happens, you know? And so what's useful about this skill is it's less about a specific topic and more about a mindset. So you're walking in and you're like, I'm going to be this gray rock. I'm going to be as interesting as a gray rock. And then it's just that baseline of, shorter answers, less information. Yeah, and less, to your point, less interesting. So I think it can really help people in kind of reframing how they're entering the space so they feel a little bit more protected. And that can connect to the concept of yellow rocking. So do you want to talk about yellow rocking now?
Yeah, yellow rock is a little bit warmer than a gray rock, so it's a
Hmm.
little bit more engagement, maybe some pleasantries, maybe some smiles and nods, and a little bit more information or engagement to kind of keep the conversation ongoing, or that it's maybe a bit more connected, but again, not a lot of self-disclosure, not a lot of emotion, a little bit more contained. And some of that comes from sometimes gray rocking isn't super safe. Like if all of a sudden you go to it being a gray rock with someone that you're normally in this dynamic with, it can not be emotionally or even physically safe for some people just to turn that off. So the idea of yellow rocking kind of is a bridge to you're still warm and pleasant and engaged, connected in some way, but you're still being really thoughtful and contained about how you're showing up in that space.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something really important with that, which is that like it connects to this. Most adult daughters want to try to have a relationship with
Yeah.
their mother. And so to go to that gray rock space, the gray rock can feel kind of cold, It's like, again, it's a little bit curt, it's kind of shorter, it's less open. And so that can be a very hard space to get to. And many adult women don't want a relationship that looks like that. So the yellow rock is a nice in between where it's like, okay, this is a person I want to try to make it work with in some way, in whatever way that I can. And it creates a little bit more warmth, but it's still boundaried
Yeah.
in a way, and you're still aware. I think the key in my mind with this is like in both cases, but especially that yellow rocking case, you're still aware of the common sort of traps with a narcissistic or emotionally immature person. You're still able to pick up on like, oh, this is one of those things that's trying to get me to open up more. So
Yeah.
you can really, really work on keeping that boundary up. So it's just like a mindset shift. What happens? Can I ask you another question?
Sure. What you got?
What if, so this shift in affect or how an adult daughter is showing up, the parent is probably going to pick up on it. What happens if they start to push back? What if they say things like, why are you being so cold? Or why don't you want to talk about this? Or, you're cutting me off. Or what if they push back on it? what next?
Yeah, I think that's a really hard place to be, and I think a lot of times adult daughters in that instance, especially in the beginning, will try to explain or defend or, "Well, because you never listen," or, "I try to share with you," or, "We can't talk about her," you go into the dynamic, and then often there's invalidation or dismissal, or you're being dramatic, and all these kind of old patterns that you're probably accustomed to. So that's one of those things. Once you gray or yellow rock, there's gonna be a response, there's gonna be a reaction to that. And oftentimes that reaction will bait you back into the dynamic. So it's really tricky, and maybe being thoughtful about what your phrases or your like kind of canned lines, I call them, of in those moments of like, oh, I'm just here, I'm just having a great day, and I'm happy to be here. If you're yellow rocking, right? Like you can just show up, you can have a vague but clear boundary, and you can just stay pleasant, present, grounded, and try not to get baited back into those old dynamics. Is that
What
kind of what you were going
That's
for? What was
exactly
coming up for
right.
you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, and I find myself when so you said I call them canned lines. What does that mean? Talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit more.
Yeah, like I try to like based on what do I know to be true going into this dynamic? What do I know to be true about this person? What do I know to be true about the relationship? And so then how can I prepare myself? Like I know they're going to criticize the way I parent. I know that they're going to criticize my how much I work. I know they're going to so these things going in. So what are your lines? Oh, I'm not really interested in talking about work today. I'm just pretty tired. Or oh, I got parenting on lock today. Like no feedback needed. Like what are going to be your lines? And you just say them calmly and directly over and over and over again. And when you get those pushbacks, and it might escalate, the more you stay calm and grounded, there might be more and more push. Why are you being like this? And what's wrong with you today? And all of these things. No, I'm fine. I'm just, I got parenting today. I don't, no feedback needed. And I got this. I'm good. Just like these lines that you can rely on over and over again to say pretty neutrally without getting kind of swooped back into that
Yeah, I
pattern.
love that. I call them mantras. It's the same exact
Mm,
idea. It's like coming in with those like I'm going to say this thing. And I think something that can also be really helpful in those moments is to have a shiny object to distract, right? So like typically when this is a managing expectations thing, which we talk about in our workbook, is this idea of like managing expectations in these relationships. Like I know my mom always asks me about my dating life, or she always asks about my job search or where I'm living, or my friends or whoever, and it never goes well. It never feels good to me. And so you have your yellow rocking, you have your canned lines, your mantras, your things that it's a broken record technique of like you're just kind of
yeah.
saying the same thing over and over and over again. If it gets more extreme, to your point, you can always, it seems like not today's not a good day. But then there's this thing you can do earlier, very early on of you've got your sentence like, yeah, I think I'm feeling pretty good about it. Actually, there's not really a whole lot to report. And then you bring up the shiny object over here. What's the thing? Oh, my mom loves, I don't know, Disney cruises, or, whatever the thing is. I just read this thing about this cruise that they just opened it up, and have you seen it? And did you hear about the new whatever? So having a shiny object can be a nice parallel skill set along with if you're trying to do the yellow rock in particular, because then you still
Totally.
got that warmth. You've got your topics, your list of topics that you feel comfortable talking about, and ones that
Yeah.
are going to kind of feed that narcissistic need or fill that bucket as well. So
Yeah.
I think
That
we're
makes a
kind of
lot of
talking
sense.
about like a couple of different things all together. We're talking about the gray rocking and the yellow rocking, those canned lines. We're talking about having a shiny object. And then at the end of the day, you can always get up and leave if you need to. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, we're going to be talking in a video soon about that concept of loneliness, which I think is really connected to this as well, which is, ultimately you would want to talk about some of these personal things with your mom, and you often can't and are left feeling very alone at the end of it. And so that's going to be a topic we're going to be exploring soon as well. So be sure to like and follow and share, and yeah, stay with us for more conversations. And hopefully you can take some of these topics back to your spaces and think about how they might work for you or might not work for you. And yeah, we'll see you again soon.
Take care.